What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit, and we have an awesome one here for you today. I'm super excited to have Kevin Brown in the studio, serial entrepreneur. He has several businesses that we'll get into in the conversation. But Kevin reached out to me. I had a clip out a few weeks ago of Mary Vance. If anybody remembers Mary Vance, that was a phenomenal episode. Mary is very colorful and had a lot of motivational stuff to say. And Kevin reached out to me because he saw a clip from Mary and asked how I book guests. And it's so funny because I usually been starting out a lot of episodes with this recently, but it's just cool how this is kind of expanding and people reaching out to me. So scheduled a sit down with Kevin, and we jammed for probably about an hour and a half just talking about business and people getting into the automotive industry that don't know how to run business and why he's been successful. So without me babbling on, I will just kick it off. And Kevin, man, welcome to the studio.
So, I'm really excited here to get going and kind of get into my story and what's going on in the world with the collision business. The truck business, I do truck repair and truck collision, two different locations, one in Farmington, one in Brighton. The truck repair business really hasn't changed a lot besides skilled labor is really, really hard to find. And, the truck repair mechanics are a dime a dozen in 1970. Nowadays, it's hard to find somebody. The truck collision world and collision world is hard too to find help. I kind of think one thing that's happened over the years is we were told, robots are going to replace blue collar. And I kind of see it happen a different way. I've studied this AI that's came out. It's replacing white collar workers. I mean, I haven't seen very many mechanics or.
I was going to say, how do you replace a mechanic?
How you replace a mechanic, because every situation is different. With the AI stuff, it has to write stuff or algorithms and stuff like that. You can program it to do everything. Well, being a mechanic or a body man, it's a completely different story. Every scenario is different. So that's kind of where.
So how did you get started in that?
Well, I grew up on a farm in Novi, Willowbrook Farms. From a young age, I always just kind of, I absolutely sucked at school. My mom used to ask me, why don't you apply yourself? I'm like, I don't give a shit. I can't be more blunt. I really didn't care much about school, but I always liked taking stuff apart, seeing how stuff worked, putting it back together. So all through elementary and middle school, I think probably about seventh grade, I started working on a farm in Novi. And I just was able to work on tractors or fix stuff on my own. It was a horse farm. So, stuff was always breaking. So, I kind of went through automotive classes in high school. And then in 11th grade, they had something called SWOVAC back then. Now I think it's called Oakland Technical Center. And they had a diesel mechanics class. So I did that in 11th and 12th grades, junior and senior. Then I went a year after I got out of school. I still went to that and finished it up. The teacher was Roger Enyart, and that was one guy that really changed my life. He taught a lot of great basic knowledge, which is not taught today. How to sharpen drill bits, how to weld, what your torch settings should be. As a matter of fact, I pulled out the books and looked through them today before I came here. So I had them since 1988.
Wow.
I probably haven't opened them books in probably 15 years. And it was kind of funny looking through them and seeing like my notes and stuff like that. So after high school, about a year after high school, the farm I grew up on basically sold. It was leased. It sold. They built a subdivision there. So here I am. What am I going to do? I got a job at Ed Bullion Tractor Sales, Kubota Tractor dealership out in Dexter. I think the guy gave me a job out of pity because we bought so much stuff from him. But I was kind of a little prick, I'm not going to lie, with a mouth that just would not quit.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, right. And I put a bunch of implements together for summer for him, and then he said, hey, it's getting slow. So he laid me off, whatever. So I kind of kicked around. Then I got a job at Hal's Auto Clinic. I got a referral from a friend of mine, his friend, and he worked at a place called Murray's Car Audio in Novi. They said, yeah, we'll give Hal a call. He's looking for a mechanic. And I'm like, okay. So I give him a call. You know, I'm the best guy. You know, I know exactly what's going on, bro. Don't worry. I'm a mechanic. Yeah. I got there and realized I didn't know shit. So I worked for Hal from started 91, ended 90. I can't remember, all the way until 93. And he was a great guy. I'm still friends with him. I told him I left him and I was going, one of the mechanics named Jeff was going to a place called Sterling Performance. They did high performance boat racing engines, Don Q Crystal, Victory Team, a lot of stuff overseas. You know, the sheikhs that just have tons and tons of money. You know, you're talking $250,000 per engine, per boat, 2 engines, 1 race, send them back to get rebuilt. I mean, we're talking money like
just throwing it away, essentially.
Throwing it away. I worked up there till like late 1994. Then I got a job at Garrett Auto and Truck in 95. And I started there as a mechanic at $11.50 an hour. And I was allowed to work all the overtime I wanted. And back then, we had to work a lot of overtime because me and my wife had just got married and bought a house in Livonia. I remember our house payment was $600. And I'm like, how in the hell are we going to pay this? This is insane. So I would work 50, 60 hours a week. And I remember some weeks that we were so short on money, we would cut a check for $10. She would write me a check for $10 and I would put gas in my truck. Vice versa, because back then it would take 5, 6, 7, 8 days for a check to catch up. And by that time it's payday. You're good to go.
How do people do that now? Like you know, you think about resources because that is something that doesn't really.
That's where OnlyFans came from.
That's where OnlyFans.
So I worked my way up the ladder there. 1997, Steve, who ended up being my best friend actually for 30 years. He ended up passing away last May. He ended up buying a place from his dad and it was bankrupt. I had no clue. I'm working there. I'm like, holy shit, the place is bankrupt. Like,
you're thinking this whole time that it's
yeah,
good.
I have no problem. I'm like, oh my God. So he's like, okay, all of a sudden everything changed. He's like, okay, what do we do? And I'm like, I had some experience from Hal's because Hal's used to make us look up our own parts and write our own estimates. So I kind of knew what markups were and stuff like that, but I didn't really know what our costs were. So we started putting the place together. We went to, this guy's name was Ted Tamarchio. Snap-on put him on. It was basically a sales type of thing on a motor vac machine. I've always been kind of a wheeler and dealer from the horse days to the farm. So we went to this class, and this guy's talking about, you know, swiping his credit card to pay payroll every week because he didn't know what his markup should be and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, like, okay, what the hell is a markup? And, you know, I kind of knew what Hal told us the markup stuff, but I didn't know. I didn't know how to figure out our costs or anything like that. And, okay, what do we have to do? So we ended up buying the motor vac machine, but they didn't have them in stock. So I got a demo from our Snap-on guy. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sell people this motor vac service because it really worked. Like, this is one injector cleaner, engine cleaner that really worked. Like, we would get a car that came in and the car would be misfiring. We'd plug this machine in. It would run this chemical through the injector. You would watch the car smooth out. I'm like, oh my God, this shit works really well. And so we went through that whole thing and I started selling that. And I sold enough motor vac services to pay for the machine when it got there. That pissed them off because I wrote them a check. Well, they wanted me to finance. I had Steve. I said, we got enough money now from doing all this. We just write them a check. He's like, okay. Well, they're like, well, that's not how this system works. We're like, we don't know what the hell to tell you. Everybody had a great running car in Farmington Hills at that time. So, you know, we went on and went on. We started making a little bit of money. And I'm like, okay, I'm out of experience. Like, what do we do? And we got a thing in the mail. It was Management Success. The guy name was Mike Lee. So I'm like, we should go to Pennsylvania to this 2-day thing and look it up. We're like, okay, where the hell are we going to get the money? We're going to have to drive. We're going to have to share a room. I'm like, you snore like, so this is going to be miserable. But so we go to
the things you do to sacrifice for business, right?
So we go to this whole thing. And these guys really knew what they were doing, but they were just always a little off. And I'm like, so we go through this whole thing, and it was $10,000 to sign up for the program. You had to get yourself to California, Glendale, California, for these workshops, marketing, management site statistics, and all that stuff. So we took like 3 credit cards, put the money on there. ended up going to California. We go through this whole class, and I mean, they're talking about the stats, emergency stats. They do this thing about personalities, and I'm not going to get into it, but come to find out, I'm always a jokester, as you're going to probably learn in this podcast. They start talking about Ron L. Hubbard. Smartphones back then, you couldn't just pull out your smartphone. Who the hell is Ron L. Hubbard?
Yeah.
Well, Ron L. Hubbard's the guy who did Scientology, did the books,
Yep.
And all that stuff. So I make a joke. So when's Tom Cruise going to come in here? Well, that really pissed them all off. So we go back and forth with them, and I learned a lot of stuff. We went for the next 2 years. We stayed on the program, and we ended up spending, I think, almost $40,000. But the one thing that they taught you how to do is figure out your margins. Managed by statistics. Like I would plug in, I still do it every Friday. I go through all my numbers and see which way my trend is going. If I'm looking at my car count goes down for a week, why did it go down? Okay, well, deer hunting season, different situations cause different drives in business, So
you're really getting into the science of it, really.
Yeah, the numbers. So
science and the math.
Yeah. So once I realized that how to actually figure out, they taught you how to, load a guy's wages up. Most people say, okay, I pay a guy $20 an hour. Okay, but what about the benefits? What about the taxes you pay on this guy? So I call it an all-in loaded, whatever you want to call it, Once I figured all that stuff, I really started watching the numbers. And like I said, Steve was my best friend and everything, but Steve and me were completely different guys. I used to call him Snorlax, like on Pokemon. Like he was a guy like you would poke him, because he was just so calm all the time. And I'm like running around. They used to call me Mach 1 at the thing because I don't have no hair because they're all burned off because I used to run around. They used to always say, you're just so driven, you drive everybody nuts. Well, I'm still that way. And now I have a 16-year-old son that does the same thing to me. I'm like, damn, dude, like chill out. Last night I was changing the oil on his generator at 11 o'clock because he's got a job. He's like, it's at the hours, Dad. You want me to blow it up? And I'm like, no, I'll change it. I'll help you. So I learned, when I learned about all the numbers and stuff and I started applying them, I started seeing a real difference, in our bank accounts and stuff like that. All of a sudden I could pay the auto parts on time. I could pay stuff on time. And I kind of got it going. And then Steve, I wanted to do a website and a bunch of stuff. And he's like, we really don't need to get into all this. And we kind of petered away from it. That company got going really well. So we kind of started buying and selling cranes. You buy a carry deck crane. They're called Broderson makes them. Terex, a bunch of other companies make them. And what they do is they'll pick up materials and they'll set them on the deck to drive around the plants. They use them in oil refinery stuff like that. It's kind of a specialty type of crane. So we bought one at an auction on accident. I was over there buying some chains and all that stuff. And Steve's like, hey, look what I bought. And I'm like, oh, it's a Drott. I'm like, why the hell would we buy that crane? He's like, I don't know. I looked online. And I could see that we had to go out to the truck, get little books back then with the cards, and our Blackberries are just too slow.
Yeah.
So he's like, look at these things, what they're going for. And I'm like, well, he's like, well, this one doesn't run, but we're mechanics. We're a mechanic shop. We'll get it running. So we get it running and sell it to Cedar Point. They wanted to use it to pull the masts out of the sailboats. Apparently there's a marina there. I never went there to the marina, but Steve went and delivered the crane after we got it running. So we bought that crane. Then we bought another one, and it kind of built up to the point where we were doing all these cranes. So we leased the building out on Emerson Drive where Motor City Truck Collision is now, and we're doing cranes. We're like, well, this is pretty good. So our second year in business, we did $1 million in sales. So we're like, dude, we're killing it. Let's go to Vegas. So his wife, my wife, and him, we went to Vegas. We went to an auction out there, looked for cranes and stuff, had a good time. And we did that for about a year. We bought a semi-truck trailer. We would go around the country buying these cranes and stuff. Well, then the economy started getting really good, and people started buying new cranes. So the old cranes, we were trying to refurb them. We just had to sell them for so much money, and that's where the margins came in. I'm like, we're not making enough money. So I'm like, well, we already have a paint booth in this building we're leasing. Let's just start a collision shop. I have a collision certification. How hard can it be? We'll just do collision work. So that's how Motor City Truck Collision was born. So I had my crew there. That was my crane crew. We did paint work on body and stuff like that. And as it got going, that crew kind of didn't work out. And I ended up meeting who now is the VP of my company, James Gray Sr., which is James Gray from Scorpion Fighting Systems.
Yeah.
his dad.
Okay.
So he's a really good body man. So then we ended up getting another skilled body guy that he used to work with. So then all of a sudden I have a badass crew. So then we got into RVs and all kinds of crazy shit there. So we do pretty much a lot of stuff that people won't do. Once again, we're kind of in that market. We're right between everybody. So that's kind of where we're at right now with Motor City.
Can I unpack on something real quick? Because I love at the beginning.
You need to go like this to tell me to shut up.
No, you were good. I love at the beginning you talk about like not really caring about school, right? And it's like basically I didn't give a shit. You didn't see a reason or a value. But then as you like, or several years later, you're in your business and it's your idea of like, let's go back to school. Let's go back and really diving in, like I said, to the math, to the numbers, to the science of it, of like, how did this happen? Where, hunting season, this impacted this, because that's really busting into the science of how your business is existing.
Yeah, you don't know till you just don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you don't know you have a problem till all of a sudden you have a problem. And that you're 100% right with that is I always make the joke, and I'll probably get flamed for this. I'm like, school's for losers. If you're an entrepreneur, I'm like, school's for losers. And I believe in college, as far as if you're going to be a veterinarian, a doctor, somewhere where you're going to go dig a big hole, but you're going to come out with a big shovel, meaning a degree. Okay. How many kids nowadays go to college and borrow money they never, ever are going to be able to pay back at an absorbent, huge interest rate? So they're going to get out of school and pay $900,000 a month for school that they're never going to apply anything they learned. My daughter went to private nursing college. She graduated. She came out. Her and her husband sold their first house, and they paid off her student loan.
Yeah.
Because they were like, what's the first thing we should do with this pile of money? I'm like, pay off your student loan. How many people do you know that literally are still paying on their student loans today?
Yeah.
Like dentists, doctors. It's crazy. And I don't think, once again, I think that if you're going to go get a degree that, like I said, a professional degree, you can make a lot of money. But we have enough managers. We don't have enough. We have enough chiefs. We don't have enough Indians.
Yep.
Yep. You can make a lot of money nowadays being a blue collar worker. I mean, when did you ever think a diesel mechanic would make over $100,000 a year? You got guys that are making 120, 125, 150. I know some guys that make a couple $100,000. Okay, it's not an easy job, but it's a job you apply yourself and you can make a lot of money because there's not a lot of people in this arena.
That's the other thing too. At the beginning, you talk about skilled trades, and I think in our society, there's always been a looking down on skilled trades, or parents are telling their kids to go to college and for all these different reasons. But there's such an opening. The college is by far not the only way. There's so many options, and skilled trades is like in all of it, whether cars, plumbing, electrical, all those things. Like we're going to be in a crunch if we're not already.
No, I totally agree. There's just not enough people doing the skilled trades because all them years we're telling these people, yeah, you just don't. They're going to be replaced by robots. They're grease monkeys. They're plumbers. They're this. Well, guess what? These are the guys that come to your house that know how to do this stuff. So guess what? You're going to need to pay them.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that in my business right now, there's groups going around, investment groups are buying shops because they're realizing, the cash flow. If you run an independent, we'll just say an independent repair facility, because I could speak to this. I won't even talk about the truck stuff that I do. I'll talk about cars. If you run your shop right, one guy, sole proprietor and owner of an S Corp, will say, and I have one shop in mind, I'm not going to say it, he just sold. He's a multi-millionaire. He was making $500,000 or $600,000 a year running his business. Okay, you look at that, and we should have looked it up online about what plastic surgeons, lawyers, and all these doctors make. You're talking a guy that runs a mechanic shop that people used to call a grease monkey is making almost as much or more than these guys with college degrees. So these guys incredible. With college degrees can't really look down on people. They do because they think they're better. But if you line the numbers up, these guys that probably own the independent repair shops probably, I don't want to say to live an easier life because, Doctors bury their mistakes. Mechanics' mistakes come back the next day. Hey, my car's still leaking oil. Hey, my car quit. You got that wrong.
That may be one of the best analogies I've ever heard. Doctors bury their mistakes. The car problem comes back the very next day.
Right? I mean, we get these calls. We had a customer last week. Guy's a great guy. He's been a customer for a long time. He always wants to call you and tell you what a great job you did, or how great it's run. But he'll also call you with any little problem. So he calls back the other day. We're like, oh God, here he is. Hey, I see there's a 5,000 mile oil change sticker in my truck. It's doing 5,000 miles. Okay. Well, the manual says 10,000 miles. If you want to run it in 10,000 miles, go ahead. But this is what's going to happen. Nope. I trust you. I'm good. Okay. Calls back. Hey, just want to tell you, thanks for everything. You're like, hey, don't freaking call me, because every time you call, all of our blood pressure jumps up. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of business we're in. It just kind of gets old because they don't call you and tell you, thank you, or you're too expensive. It was terrible. You had it too long, whatever. Yeah. It's kind of a thankless job. I mean, it is what it is, but,
and I just had a conversation with this recently. Is we're in a society where we do very little praise, and we're quick to point out the mistakes. And whether it's our relationships, our employees, the people that take care of our things, our service people, like we're so quick to point out the mistake. But when they did an excellent job, we're very slow or non-existent on like, hey, thank you for that. And if we get more of what we look for. And so if we're looking for mistakes and problems, and again, if your car's not working, your car is not working. But if you're going to put all the emphasis and energy to make sure that you point that out, put the same amount of energy into pointing out that, man, when you did fix it, hey, I just wanted to let you know this rocked. That you guys are awesome. Put a review out there for how amazing you guys are.
No, you definitely hear that. What they say, if you do a good job, they might tell one person. If you do a bad job, they'll tell 12 people. And that's true.
Yep.
That's true. I used to get really bent out of shape about bad reviews. And let's face it, some of them you just can't help.
Yeah.
Some shit just happens, and you can, like, hey, like I had, we did a boat trailer for a guy down at Garrett's, and we built new bunks and put new carpet on them, rewired the trailer, put new fenders on it, painted the fenders. And inside the fenders, the mechanic forgot to put the wood. So, like, I'm like, how the hell did this get out of here? So the guy calls, and I happen to answer the phone. He said, hey, you guys did my boat trailer. It looks really good, except for you didn't put the boards inside the fenders. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, no, you didn't put them in. I said, send me a picture. So he sends me a picture, and he starts yelling at me. And I'm like, dude, oh, my God. I'm opening the pictures, and he's bitching at me. I'm like, yeah, well, wow. Can you bring it back so we can take care of it? He keeps bitching. So finally I go, hey. He goes, what? I go, if you don't shut the hell up, I'm not going to do shit for you. Did you hear what I said? He's like, no, what I said. Oh, my God, we screwed that up. Bring it back, and we'll take care of it. There's a long pause. He goes, you will? I go, yeah, we screwed up.
Yeah.
He goes, well, most people don't say that. I go, well, I'm here to tell you, we screwed up.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that's the key, because you're right. There are a lot of places out there that will not admit the mistake. And that's, again, a difference maker for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I charge a lot of money for what I do because we're really good at it, but I eat our mistakes. Anybody who knows me knows that I like, okay, yep, we screwed that up. If you come to me and say, Kevin, you screwed that up, I go, holy shit, yes, I did. The argument's gone. It's what am I going to do about it to make it right?
Absolutely.
And I've done that over and over again. And sometimes it costs a lot of money, which it would be a lot easier for me to go, you know what, kiss my ass. But I'm just not, I'd rather at this point in my life make it right and go on with it.
Yep. Yeah,
being
in career and sales, by doing that, by owning the mistake, you calm that person down by listening to them and owning that mistake. Those usually become customers for life. That they'll go out and tell other people because they don't encounter that kind of accountability, especially from salespeople and probably auto mechanics.
No, I should have brought my son-in-law to sit next to me. He worked for me for a couple of years. He's like, my God, you'll sit there and scream and yell at a customer, and after they're all done, they're like, can I bring my truck back for you to fix it? Because sometimes these people are just unreasonable. I just don't take it. I'm like, you can get lost, the truck repair business, I get it. I've been in it for over 30 years. So I understand, if you own a landscaping company, you have from this month to this month. I can't actually name the months anymore because it's a floating. Okay, so I start working today because it's nice, right? Well, I'm going to go do some fall cleanups. All of a sudden, I get my truck. I did the best I could, but all of a sudden, my truck's broke. You're going to cost them a lot of money if you don't get their truck written right away. And I get that, okay? Where the dealerships, not all of them, but most of them are like, yeah, you got a 3-week, 4-week wait. We don't give a shit about you. Okay, we are the dealer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I have a little bit more leniency, and so do my people. They'll be like, well, Brad from Brad's Removal Service or whatever, he's been a customer for 20 years. He needs an alternator. We got a 3-week lead. Pull it in and put an alternator on the thing. Get the guy back to work. I've done that for years. So we have a good reputation in that. The collision business, I'm going to tell you, it's been a little bit of a struggle for me understanding how in control the insurance companies are of the collision
I know
business.
this was a big driver of our conversation. Yeah.
I don't even know where to start, but I'll just start out back before COVID. You had a bunch of insurance adjusters. You would wreck your car, you would get it towed to a shop. They would send an insurance adjuster out. He would go out there with his computer, his camera. He would come out. He would do a bunch of stuff. And a lot of the good guys that have been doing it for a lot of times, they'd be out there an hour, hour and a half. They'd walk in and go, here you go. Here's the estimate. You go, well, wait a second here. Let's go back out here. Let's look at this. That's not enough. Whatever. You could kind of go back and forth and come to an agreement right there. Okay. COVID happens. Everybody's on lockdown, for our own good. Nobody wanted to get the cough and the sneeze.
Yep.
So the mobile app was born. Well, why can't we just take a picture of a car? How complicated can it be? Well, most of these cars have 10-mile-an-hour bumpers, 15-mile, depending on the manufacturer. They say, okay, it could withstand impact at this mile per hour, blah, blah, blah. Well, nobody never tells you they're going 40 mile an hour in a parking lot and they run into something. Everybody's going 3 miles an hour, and, I just can't believe it happened. So they'd say, okay, you would call in, you say, I wrecked my car or my truck. They say, okay, we're going to send you a link. We need you to take a picture of the damage from left side, the right side, the front, the top. We don't want you to crawl on the ground or anything. We don't want you to get hurt. So you send 4 pictures. So they send 4 pictures to the insurance company where somebody who never ever fixed a car looks at these pictures and goes, well, shit. In that class, they told me you could fix that dent. It's a softball-sized dent. It could be 3 hours. So they write up 3 hours. They look up the cheapest parts possible on the internet. They type that in. Then they send you this bullshit estimate with a little bit of paint cost and material cost. They do your paint cost by your labor hour. So they do paint hours and labor hours, right? Well, that's great. So you get this estimate, it's $900. You're like, holy shit. Like, I can't do this, right? So they never check the availability on the parts. They just go to a website. They say, oh, this part's $19. Well, they didn't hit add to cart necessarily 9 to 12 week lead time.
Any of us sitting at home that have done online shopping can relate to this from a human experience, right? You go and you find something like, I found it for $6, but it doesn't exist.
Right. Or Amazon, would you like it under your pillow or in your garage by 9 o'clock tonight? And you're on this website going, how the hell could it be 9 weeks or 12 weeks to get this part? It's bullshit. So you get the car in, you take it apart. Okay. The guy missed 99% of the stuff. So you're like, hey, your estimate's $13,000. Then all of a sudden, you can see the smoke of the insurance company, come up. We're going to have a third-party inspector come out. Because guess what? They thought it would be a great idea when they roll out this mobile app to get rid of all these seasoned adjusters. Think about it. You can get rid of guys making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. All the insurance companies wax all these guys. All of a sudden, they got a bunch of young kids who are into tech anyway looking at pictures. They went through a class that the insurance company made, And I've heard over the years that these insurance companies, I know a really good adjuster that's still in the business. He's a third-party adjuster. He said, I will not save you money, but you will not get ripped off when I do an estimate. We will fix it right. They said, well, we don't want to fix it necessarily 110% right. We want to get by. So you're paying all this money for insurance premiums.
Just to get by.
Think about this. We had alone last year, I think we had 7 paint and material increases. How many increases did the insurance company give us in materials? 0. If you're an independent, they call it a direct repair, where they set a rate for you and they say, oh, we're not going to inspect you. You can just go do it. But they're all of a sudden up your ass. So you're fixing cars for $20 an hour. Well, our labor rate's $153 an hour. Last week, we had them come in, a Sprinter, Mercedes Sprinter, Dodge Sprinter, same company. It's all one rebadged truck. Nobody wants to touch this truck. Nobody will touch the dealers. That's too big. Well, we can fix it. We have the paint booth that's big enough. Our labor rate's $153 an hour. So they write this thing for $55 an hour. So I'm like, okay, all loaded, my guy makes $48 an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to do this job.
Scratching it, yeah.
So the adjuster calls. He says, well, what's your labor rate? We say 150. You need to come up with something reasonable. What do you consider reasonable, Mr. Adjuster? What you say is reasonable? Because you're trying to, I don't know if they get bonuses for saving money.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, reasonable to me is 153 because that's what I have to do to stay in business. Why is it 153.21? Because that's exactly how much money I need per hour to stay in business. Pay my bills, pay my everything. So we go back and forth, and he ends up coming up to like 120, which is fine. I can make it work for that to keep the job. But I thought the ball's on this guy saying reasonable. How do you know what's reasonable? You know, you get probably X, Y, or Z from the insurance company for going out and doing this. Now the next problem we run into, okay, to get from the $55 he offered all the way to the 120 took 5 days. Okay. So that job was the 19th. This was a short month. That job didn't get closed this month by the time the insurance company got done screwing around. So think about that with their red tape. Not only they're trying to beat you up on price, they're trying to have you. I haven't got into the estimate leg of this whole thing yet. So now they've already beat us up till after the job just got finished. The lady finally just paid her deductible before I got here. I seen the email. Okay. So my guys are all on a sales bonus, performance bonus. So we're like, this guy not doing his job because he's overloaded or doesn't give a shit because the insurance company doesn't put timers on him. Sat there and screwed this job around to the point now where I didn't even hit my numbers last month. Because first thing I walked in this morning, I'm like, how you didn't hit your numbers, huh? He's like, nope. He's like, and this is why. And I'm like, man, they're really screwing on your production. So, but if you start giving them a hard time, what do? They push back.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's no checks and balances. So this whole game is rigged for the people in the insurance companies. I'm sorry to say it's true because how many premium increases have we all gotten since COVID? You know, the news even helps them. You won't believe what's going on in Michigan. You won't believe what's going on here. We need to increase these premiums and this and that and the other thing. But the shops on the other end, no. And it's kind of funny because we bought a cabin up north and I called for homeowners insurance. I was like $800 some dollars. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm thinking it's a piece of shit cabin up north. Like, if it burnt down, it probably cost you $40 to rebuild it up there, right? Well, everybody's getting increases in their homeowners, in their auto, in their auto policies. Like, but the insurance company on our end, people doing the repairs and stuff like that,
Just trying to go lower.
They're trying to go lower. And for the kicks of it, and believe me when I tell you this, I think anybody that's a CEO should make what they can make. That's great. Okay, if they made it all the way to where they're at, that's fantastic. I'm just trying to put this in perspective. $10 million the State Farm CEO made last year. I think it said in 2021, for some reason I didn't read into it, he made $24 million. Okay, that's not a company that needs to raise our rates because they're losing money.
Yeah.
Nonprofit bullshit all these companies put in or whatever. And like I said, I don't care what CEOs make. I think you should make what you make, and that's great. You know, I'm a capitalist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just so now I'm kind of jumping around a little bit because I'm very passionate, as you could tell. So what happens when Jason Tracy, the adjuster, just come out and write your estimate, and all of a sudden there's no Jason Tracy. He got fired. So they call me. Now they're like, hey, that truck's been there for 3 days. Did you write the estimate? And I'm like, that's not my job. My job is to fix it. When did I become the estimate writer to?
Yeah.
Because when I give you an estimate, you say, oh, this is bullshit. You're way too high.
I was going to say, isn't that kind of like conflicting?
Yeah. So what I started to do to these people, I'm like, well, me and Jim got together, and I'm like, let's just tell them to come on and write their own damn estimates. And if they want us to write an estimate, they have to pay us $180 to write an estimate. If they're going to pay their credit card fee, they have to pay a credit card fee on top of it. Well, they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, we can. If you want an estimate, pay it. Well, I'm not authorized. Well, guess what? They're all of a sudden all starting to get authorized when all of a sudden we won't take this sitting down over at Motor City Truck Collision. And my thought of writing an estimate is I want to get paid for our time. Well, because if you think about it, my automotive or my truck repair app, I could literally be like, okay, front brakes F-150, labor, boom, boom, boom. It looks up the auto parts. It looks up the parts already.
Mm-hmm.
I go, okay, it needs calipers, it needs rotors, and it needs brake pads. Boom. It takes me literally 5 minutes to do an estimate. Boom, there it is, right? An body shop estimate, you have a lot of little intricate little fasteners, paints. How much paint am I going to put? Sometimes this box trucks and stuff, it could take you 4 hours. Well, think about it. If you do 2 estimates a day, you have a guy sitting up there you're paying, he's not getting paid. For the insurance company, you're paying a guy pretty much for nothing.
Losing money, yeah.
Right. So what we do is when we write an estimate, our program, we take all the pictures of everything, we write it all out, we detail everything, we write it all down to here it all is, pictures and all. What that does is it gets us closer to the actual repair. So a lot of the times what we're finding out is a lot of these times these cars might be an actual total. Versus we started out of a $900 estimate is $13,000. That's not even a bullshit story I was telling you. I had a friend of mine, his wife swerved, missed a deer, hit a tree. They came out. They had the car. It was a Traverse. It got towed to us. A lady came out. I don't remember what insurance company. She sat there for like 4 hours and wrote this estimate. The estimate was like $3,200. And I'm like, wow. So I get there in the morning. I stop by there in the morning. Me and Jim start looking at it. We pop the hood. The engine is broke. The block is broken. The transaxle, where the axle came out, it snapped it off. I'm like, this thing's waxed, right? So we go in there and we do this estimate. Took us a couple hours. It came out to like $23,000 or some stuff. We're like,
let's say with the engine cracked, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it wasn't just cracked. It was broken off. Like the lady never popped the hood because we had to get a tool. She never came in and said, hey, will you pop the hood for me? She just sat there and just wrote all the way around, like never even seen. So us writing an estimate, we get closer to the actual amount of what it could be done.
So it's actually a good thing that you're doing the estimate. It's just a matter of like getting paid for it.
Right. And there's great insurance companies out there that will step up to the plate, and there's a lot of them that won't. We had a truck get towed in. We wrote it for $68,000 worth of damage. The guy came back at $23,000 or $24,000. We're like, oh, that's cute. We're going to buy half the parts. So the guy's like, well, we never contracted you to work on this truck. We're like, hey, asswipe, you sent us the email. It says, hey, we need an estimate on this truck. It's towed in. That's pretty much you contracting us. We said, we don't care. The truck's been here for 70 days or whatever, 80 days. It's $100 a day. Just give us a check and away you go. Because we charge $100 a day for storage for these trucks. So we end up going back and forth. They end up giving us more money. I think we're in the 40s. We just about have the truck done. It needs an alignment. It needs some other stuff. We send them the supplement. We're not paying anymore. What do you mean you're not paying more? The truck's 3/4 of the way done in our shop. We're not paying for this. So we call the customer. Hey, they're not paying for this. So the guy ended up having to pay I think he did the bare minimum of $5,000 to get this thing back on the road. That insurance company just basically like, sue me. You're a little peon. It doesn't matter. Sue me. Now we have another company that they rolled they're dumping the gravel front lead. They twisted the frame on the truck. We straightened the frame out, put a roof on the side on the truck. I think the bill was $40,000. We got all done with the truck, started it up. It's making a weird noise. Shut it off. Chris, one of the guys that worked for me, looked down and sees a bolt laying there. So he's like, holy shit, that's an awful big bolt. So they start looking around. It's the motor mount bolt in the front of the engine. This is a 2024 International semi-tractor with a wet kit. So we take it down to my other shop. We pull the radiator out. The block is broken. Like there's it's like gone. So we sent all the pictures to the insurance company. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be $90,000 to put an engine in this truck.
2024. That's rough.
Total bill on this truck's $120 something right now. They stepped up. They said, yep, go ahead and fix it. Wrote us a check. So you kind of pay for what you get in the insurance world. So there is good, there is bad. But the whole, these guys not knowing what their costs are and what's going on in the world is really kind of hindering because the insurance company's steering the ship. It's like, what do they say? The tail's wagging the dog.
Yeah, yeah.
The insurance companies kind of, now they literally will call, like, for instance, we had a truck at the shop there the other day. They didn't believe us. The cost on the hood was like $17,000 for this Peterbilt's aluminum hood. The guy didn't believe us. So instead of him calling the dealership and go, hey, I got this truck, blah, 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 here's the hood. How much is this hood? He calls Jim, says, yeah, hey, obviously you made a mistake on your estimate. He's like, where did you get this part number? Jim's like, from the Peterbilt dealer with the VIN number. Well, the price is wrong. The price isn't wrong. He never even picked up the phone to call. So
He
then
just tried to call it.
Yeah, so he just tried to call and beat us up on it. So he tries all these different hoods, aftermarket hoods. Well, this is an aluminum hood. You can't put a fiberglass hood on where aluminum hood goes. It just doesn't fit. So he ended up calling the dealer to get that price of that part and have him relook up just to make sure we weren't lying. You know, it's insane what's going on in all this
So
stuff.
going back, like with your fee to do the estimate, how many times are they telling you no? Are they doing it? Are they going through it and paying you for that most of the time?
I would have to say right now we're probably at 98% of the time they pay.
Yeah. So you found an extra revenue.
Yes.
Because it actually is better for you to go through this and do this anyway.
Right. And, you know, I have no problem if we get paid. We could probably charge more. Like some of these motorhomes, you want to talk about a time suck.
Oh, man.
Come on. They make a model of a motorhome for 3 or 4 months, and then they move on to the next one. So think about trying to get parts for them. A lot of the stuff is custom-made parts. I mean, you could literally spend 6 hours on an estimate easy on a motorhome.
Oh, my God.
It's ridiculous because you're calling your manufacturer. They don't give a shit about you. They don't care if they're going to sell one panel, you know? So yeah, we've definitely found a new revenue stream in that as far as the estimates. And I kind of wish more people would tell the insurance company in our business no, but you have the dealerships that are 3-dimensional. When I say 3-dimensional, they're probably even more than that, but you got the front of the house, which is a car sales, I guess. So you got used car sales, so there's 2. Then you got service and you have collision, right? And whatever else they do, right? So you have 4 incomes of revenue. So what they do is they split these up, and the body shop is a dumping ground of everything.
Yeah.
So I'd be willing to bet you if they really broke it all down, the body shops really don't make any money because I think some of these techs, and I don't know the numbers, but I remember last time I heard them, like each insurance company was different. Like these guys make like $14 an hour flat rate, 13 or 12, or you know what I mean? So the body shops really probably don't give a shit. It's like more of a loss leader for them. Kind of like you go to the grocery store, you watch the eggs and the milk, but they get you on the peanut butter.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's what happens. Well, we're a singular entity. Like we just fix stuff. So we kind of got to watch and kind of can't put up with, oh, we're not going to do this. And paint materials, I mean, think about everything else, how much it's gone up. The last lying, inflation mark was 14%, which we know, come on, it's way more than that. I mean, we're not scientists or mathematicians, but we know what gas and what everything went up. I mean, our Edison bills, they came up with an idea that there's a peak time. If you have your lights on, you have to pay more money now when your lights are on versus in the middle of the night. I mean,
that's insane.
I don't know. Did you notice your Edison bill increase?
No, I didn't notice that. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Because I think they came up with some deal. They did a price increase with consumers and Edison. I believe, I know Edison for sure. The governor signed a thing that they could increase rates. So
we're getting increased all across the board,
but not for paint and materials. And that's why I think I like the repair industry so much better because I buy a part, I put a markup on it, I say you can buy it or you can't, Mr. Customer, and 9 times out of 10, our commercial customers, they buy it. I charge, I give them a fair price, I stand behind the product, and that's the same as the dealer does. Okay, the collision world is a completely different deal. They're saying that here's a perfect example. And I kind of agree with the insurance company a little bit on this one. Okay, so the standard is they give you 10% on a sublet. So if I take your truck, your car, whatever, over to wherever to get aligned, they say, okay, the bill's $200, we'll give you 10% on that. Okay, well, I took that truck that needed an engine from Motor City to a shop, right? So I should have got 10%, right? Well, that would have been $10,000.
Yeah.
But I have to adhere by their rules. Why can't they? The guy called and said, don't you think that's a little ridiculous? And we said, yes. I said, so we'll do 5%. Well, I don't think my boss will do that. Oh, I don't know what to tell you. They ended up doing 5%. They said, at least you were fair. So, in that particular case, that's a good insurance company. There have been another insurance company like, nope, sorry, don't know what to tell you. But you can't, they rewrite the script all the time on you.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I know, one of the big passions when we were talking is educating other collision shops, other small business owners on, their numbers, and also, getting on board with charging a diagnostic fee or an assessment or estimate fee, because they're getting bullied in losing money.
Yeah, they are. They're afraid that the insurance adjusters are going to get mad at them, not steer work. Now, they always say that they can't steer work anyway. They'll give you 3 shops. So, but they always, they call them direct repairs. We'll give you 3 shops, whatever, as far as that goes. But no, I would agree that I think a lot of these body shops need to kind of stand up the insurance company. But I think if they're not independent, they really don't give a shit, because they get a percentage of what they sell. So they just have to figure out ways to inflate the hours or whatever, because, the dealer world, everybody's on commission.
Yeah.
You're on commission. I'm on commission. If we do a really good job, we can keep our house, our cars, our business, and right? I mean, so in a sense, we're on commission.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Being in sales my whole life, there really isn't much of a difference.
Right. It's not. And, that's kind of how I always gauge people when I go to do a job interview and you talk about flat rates. They're always like, flat rate or commission? Are you serious? I just thought I would just get a nice, easy wait. You're lazy already,
Yeah.
I was on commission all through my 20s. I think I got married. So up to the time I worked at Garrett's, I worked at Hal's. I was on commission. And I remember some weeks, and he was a really good businessman. He was my friend, but he was a prick. I can remember screwing up. I messed up an Audi Transpan. I messed up a Tempo timing gears and stuff, and I made no money.
He charged you back for him?
Not only that, he said, hey, I'm going to give you $40 so you can make it to work next week to finish all the shit you screwed up. So hopefully you'll have it done by Tuesday, so maybe you can make some money. If not, I'll loan you a little bit more so money you can come back till the next week. And you know what? That was good.
Yeah.
At first, I thought I was going to cry. I made it. I didn't die. But you know what? What that made me do is pay attention. Can you imagine if you did that somebody nowadays? You'd be on some kind of list. People would be all over you. I grew up on a farm. Nobody gave a shit. Work a little bit harder. You're tired. Oh, boo, go cry somewhere else. Them days are gone.
Yeah.
I mean, at my house, my kids all work. My kids have their problems, but they all work. Okay? My son, I have 2 sons. They both work. My daughter's in real estate. My other daughter's a nurse. We all work. My wife has had the same job for 32 years. She won't retire because she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll be bored. We're just workers. And, you've met families like that where, the kids see the dad working.
Yeah.
If I'm not at the shop. Now, when I was younger, I had to work a lot because I was making $11 an hour, $11.50 an hour.
Yep.
So we kind of had to work to kite checks back and forth for gas.
Yep.
I think to where I'm at nowadays, I put it on my Facebook thing, I get so sick of people going, it must be nice. Well, there's lots of different pictures and memes out there of the iceberg sticking out of the water, success, and that just show all the disappointment. I've screwed up shit. I've lost money. I've made deals. I got lied to not long ago on a collision software. The guy sat there and lied through his teeth to me, and me and Jim tried to make it work, and we couldn't. And it got to the point where I called them we need to cancel. This is bullshit. They're like, well, you can cancel it. Cost you $13,000 to cancel it. I'm like, ouch.
Oh, man.
So I'm like, well. So I sent it to my lawyer, and I'm like, well, what do you think? He's like, well, you're going to have to hire a lawyer in California because they did the venue in California, which I knew nothing about. where basically they say, okay, if you're going to go ahead and fight us, we're in California, so you have to come to California, the land of fruits and nuts.
Yep.
And so he's like, it's cheaper to pay the $13,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not sitting here acting like I don't make mistakes. I wonder if I screw shit up all the time.
Yep.
And we paid for it, and that was $13,000. You know how much repair I have to do to eat, to cover that $13,000? But it is what it is. We made it. We didn't die. I think one of the reasons we are strong is because I was not so cocky that I was making money that I didn't realize that I needed to go back to school, something I hate. I don't like school. I never had, like I told you, but I seen a need to go back to that and go into that management success and stuff like that. And that really changed everything for us.
What do you think that difference was going back to school this time to where you learned it?
I gave a shit.
Yeah,
I did not give a shit. I never gave a shit who cleaned the toilet on the Mayflower.
Yeah.
I could give a shit who Christopher Columbus is. I know people are like, history buffs are like, listen to this guy, but it doesn't pertain to what I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I've always been one of them guys. I always look forward. Okay. Like, okay, I'm always like, I drive all my people that work for me nuts. So like, my God, like Jim's like, my God, you're 75 steps ahead of me. Like, you need to stop. Cause I'm like, I'm not going to do this and that. So I think once I get interested in something, I focus on it. And that was one of the things. I just didn't understand how these guys could come up with all these numbers to run their shop. And once I learned it, I kind of applied it to in between Motor City and Garrett's were both going good. I started Storm Taekwondo with a friend of mine. He was into Taekwondo. I got my black belt when I lost a bunch of weight in 2011. So I went to Everest Taekwondo in Waterford. I ended up getting my black belt through them. So I'm like, let's open a school. And he's like, I wanted to. So we opened one in Commerce. Well, we're like, we both know martial arts. We both know business, but I really don't know. So we got a hold of this place in Ohio. The guy's got like 6 schools, and they make bank, right? So he's like, well, we're going to start a consulting thing. I'm like, perfect, sign us up. The problem with him was we were so driven. I was in charge of the consulting. I called him so much. They're like, this is an 8-week process. You're in the 3rd day, and you've already gone through everything we've got. So we've never really done this, but we're going to have to let you go.
You got fired for overachieving. That's
so I remember going out there, and I said to Shane, I said, they don't want to be our consultant anymore. In his words, it's like, what the fuck did you do?
What did you do?
I said, I didn't do nothing. He's like, well, let's get him on the phone. So we go out behind the dojang, and he's like, hey, so this is Shane and Kevin. You're on speakerphone. What happened? He's like, you're already done with everything we had. We don't have nothing more. You're taking up too much of our time with your questions. So we're like, oh, that sucks. So I'm like, we could just do this ourselves. We
don't have anything more. That's hilarious.
And he knew what he was doing. The guy clearly was very successful, but we just kind of went through what maybe week 1 do this, week 2 do this, right? We're already like, so we managed to put 250 students in that school in 6 months. So we stayed friends with the guy. We're still friends with him. He's like, yeah, nobody's ever put that many kids in one place. I mean, we had to buy walkie-talkies with earpieces because the place was so busy with free trials. And we killed it. So I was doing jiu-jitsu at the time at Scorpion too. So I'm like, why not start a jiu-jitsu program? I'm a blue belt. How hard can it be? So I started a jiu-jitsu program in the back of the dojang, and that class really became popular. So I was training 3 days a week with James Gray, private lessons, junior. And I did the jiu-jitsu school, and then it got to the point where it's so big we had to rent a place across the parking lot. So now all of a sudden Storm Jiu-Jitsu's born. Well, I'm a fat white guy. I got really good shape. Well, I'm not Brazilian, so what is wrong? You're not Brazilian. You can't do jiu-jitsu. Like, yeah, well, watch me. So we started going to the tournaments. We started whipping everybody's asses. Our kids were like really aggressive. Like, that's kind of the person I'm like, we're going to go out there and fight. We're not going to be dirty. We're going to follow the rules, but you're going to go out there and you're going to fight.
Cobra Kai, man.
Yeah, that's what Shane says, like, swoop the leg. So we went out there, and, our kids program was in the top 3, or if not first, in a lot of these tournaments. So we did that, and I remember a guy came up to me and said, Brazilian guy, are you a black belt? I said, no, I'm a blue belt. You a blue belt in your school? I said, well, I don't need a black belt because my kids are all kicking your kids' ass. And I remember Shane going, oh my God, what a. So it kept going. The school kept getting big, went on and stuff like that. And when COVID hit, I just basically, we were working 8 in the
Oh my
morning.
God,
I was
man.
getting up at 10 o'clock at
I'm
night.
like in my head trying to picture how you're partial.
I would leave. Yeah, I would leave. I would go to Motor City in the morning. I would go over everything there. I would go to Garrett's right after I got to the Motor City. I usually left around 3 o'clock. I would drive out to Brighton to Scorpion. I would do a lesson with him for an hour. Then I would drive down to Storm. Then I would do my thing with Storm. Then I would probably get home 10 or 11 every night. And we did that for 3 years. Then COVID hit, and we had a guy that wanted to buy the Taekwondo part of it. The jiu-jitsu was my craft, what I did. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to sell that. So we just closed that. That was kind of the chapter on that. But, I guess my message to everybody, if you try hard enough, you focus hard enough for anything and ask for help or get the education, you could do very well. It's just a lot of people don't have the balls to actually go out and just like, I'm going to start a body shop because my Korean shop's petering out. Do we really know about bodies? Nah, not really, but I could take a test and pass the certification for the state, sure. Now I have a really well-known body shop. One of the things is we're kind of the best kept secret right now because we've been in business like 7 or 8 years, so it's kind of hard to get your word out, because social media is kind of muddled. So we have Google, and I do my outrageous commercials.
I love the commercials.
Right.
I did listen to a couple this morning, actually.
Yeah, I get that. I see people like, where do you come up with this shit? I'm just like, everybody's commercials like, we're the best. We're family owned. Like, nobody gives a shit with your family, your hot wife, and your kids, with your little comb overs, and you're sitting there, we're family owned. Like, that is the biggest cliche. They tell you in all advertising classes, like, that's kind of the thing of the past, where family owned type of thing. I don't know. I just kind of make it humorous.
Yeah.
And,
do you have an example for? I mean, we could play a commercial probably, but like, do you have an example of kind of some of the things you say in the commercial?
Oh, the one I got the one where it's a gangster talking about. Oh, I got the one with the clown. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but the dealerships are a bunch of clowns. Are you done clowning around? Come to Motor City. We're the no bullshit company. Well, they wouldn't say that was Riff would let me say bullshit. WHMI said you can always say bull.
No bull. That's the one I heard today was the no bull
Yeah.
that stops you.
Yeah, because I want people to actually come there, and I want them to have a good experience. And yeah, we're expensive, but we do a really good job. We're good at our craft, and we try to take care of customers. And by us writing their estimates and stuff like that, we'll argue with the insurance company on why something needs to be done. So at the end of the day, they're probably getting a better job than they ever would have somewhere else, because a lot of guys will just take that money and say, okay, they paid for PPG paint. Let's go ahead and use a Econoline brand or something to save us some money there. So the customer's not necessarily getting the best work. We fix a lot of jobs that people have screwed up or tried to fix too. They'll bring it to us and say, what do you think? We'll be like, what the hell happened here? But I mean, people are trying to make a living.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's not a lot of skilled guys out there too. So, as far as that goes.
I love that you mentioned too, but transitioning to the body shop from the crane business, because the crane business failed. Because as you were telling that story, I thought about like you're going through this whole journey, and you're quick to change and pivot. As far as you didn't wait for it to just die. You were like, all right, now let's move and change and grow.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things for being a serial entrepreneur or being 100% in charge. I don't have to go to a board.
Yeah.
And go, hey, let's take 6 months to decide if this is a good idea and get your cost analysis, benefits, and I just say okay. Yep. And I'm the first to say, yeah, I screwed that one up. I had something that happened to me which I never really thought that I'll try to do this without getting upset. That would really affect my mindset, and it did. Was when Steve, his dad started Garrett Auto Trucks, so I started working for him in 1995, and we quickly became friends. We would argue like there's no tomorrow. It was like, what's that one movie with Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon?
Oh, yeah.
Grumpy Old Men.
Yeah.
We would sit in the middle of the shop and mother each other, then just go to lunch. But he ended up retiring in 2018. He was diagnosed with cancer, like right on his honeymoon, his wife died of cancer. I'm not going to get into that. Then he got remarried. On his honeymoon, he started feeling bad. Shortly after that, they found a mass. So it just fast forward, he ends up dying this year in May. So I ended up spending 2 weeks at his house with him dying, sitting next to him, right? And that was a guy that you could, you have one person in your life, you could say whatever you want, unguarded, like, losing him was tough. Because if I had a problem, I would run by him. He had a different outlook on me than me on pretty much everything. We were complete opposites, so we got along great. That was tough for me. Now you kind of you second guess yourself a little bit. That was tough, and that led me down a road where I started drinking. I started drinking a lot. When he got sick, I just didn't know how to deal with it. I'm like, well, I don't have the martial arts schools. I get off work at 4 o'clock. Might as well go have a drink.
Yep.
Or 20.
Or 20.
And then it just took me down this road. I had quit drinking I think it's 64 days ago now. I'm like, all right, now next is the gym. I'm thinking about the gym. I told Mary, she's like, are you going to go to the gym? I'm thinking about it. I've gained 40 pounds because I drank and didn't do nothing, but I'm thinking about it. But I guess, my thing I would say to people is when you lose somebody and it'll get easier. I didn't think I couldn't even talk about it. I'd see pictures weeks after, I would cry, I told him that, I said, if I die before you, you have to ride your Harley behind my hearse, and vice versa. So I rode behind his hearse to the cemetery on my Harley, and that was a tough ride. But what do you do?
What do you do?
I had to keep going. There's a lot of people that count on me. I mean, I'm in charge of a lot of families. So that kind of sucks. So. After that, I helped his wife, who's an awesome lady. We sold all his stuff. And I was the guy that knew everything, where everything came from, what everything was worth, what the combination of the safe was. You know what I mean? So,
well, his brother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. So we ended up auctioning all his stuff off. Had an auction and stuff. And it was kind of funny, This is kind of where his wife, Pam, he told Pam, he said, whatever Kevin says, do. He might fuck it up, but just listen to what he has to say. So, I looked at the property and he's like, you can get $350 for it probably. And, everybody wants to help. So a lot of people, gave her prices and stuff. And I remember one guy came out and looked at it and he wanted to call me, and he was some kind of doctor, I don't remember. Well, he was like, well, I could probably come up with 280. I'm like, yeah, you're way short, slick. Well, I could kind of read the room. I called Pam. I go, this guy is not a buyer. I go, no. I go, maybe we should wait till the spring and then do it. Well, she was starting to get antsy, and we talk. I'm like, all right, let's just call the auctioneer and get him to come out here. So the auctioneer's like, this property is not going to bring. I'm not going to throw the numbers out there for Pam's sake, but we'll just say this is going to only probably bring $100,000 if you're lucky. And I'm like, I told my wife, I said, if it brings that kind of money, we'll just tell Pam, we'll buy half of it. We'll have 40 acres together, and she could build a house out there. But she didn't really want to build a house out there, kind of off the beaten path. I'm like, let's just auction it off and tell Doug where we have to be. We can always say no. So we market and everything. It brought way, way more than anybody anticipated. And I guess the moral of that story is I kind of held my ground. I kind of knew what it was going to be worth. Yep. I kind of just said, you know what, let's just do this. And it ended up working out for her. And we sold everything in one day, the land, the equipment, everything. We loaded it up. And that, walking out of that place for the last time was kind of closure for me. I got his tractors. He's got an old tractor. He gave me 2 tractors in his toolbox, and that was pretty much, I didn't even want his damn toolbox. Like, I have so many tools now, but I'll keep it till the day I die. And, my son will use it, I'm sure. Then after that, I'm sure tools won't even, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Who knows where the tools are going, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it got better, as far as all that goes. So that's kind of where I'm at today. I'm kind of at this point where I'm not drinking. Everything's a lot better for me. I just got to go to the gym, as Mary says.
You got a great person with Mary. She'll kick your ass, I'm sure.
Yeah. Me and Mary get along very well. she's done a great job. I mean, I got down to like 200 pounds and I was like ripped. But, I don't know about you. I hate the gym.
Do you?
I've never been one of the guys that like to go to the gym.
Uh-huh.
I don't. I don't know why.
I enjoy it. It's interesting because I've fallen, like everybody, you have periods of time where you fall off, but when I'm in it, it's like, how could I ever fall off? Like it's something but it has to be purposeful and intentional. And we talk about that a lot in the podcast, just period. And you had a lot of being intentional and purposeful in your life that's gotten you to here. But I have to sit and say, this is what my week's going to look like. And this is when I'm going to the gym. I have to schedule it out and make it happen. And if I stop going, it's so easy to just stop, to get out of that habit. And so I'm very intentional in my planning, and I work out 5 times a week so I can play basketball.
Yeah. See, now I didn't have a problem with like jujitsu, going to jujitsu exercise, and that's brutal.
Yeah.
My knees are shot because of it and stuff like that. I made it all the way. I think I have 2 stripes on my purple belt with James Gray. I miss it, but I don't think my knees and stuff will like hold up to it now. They just hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to have to get knee surgery and stuff. I'm sure I'm going to do. My dad ended up getting hip surgery and all that stuff as you get older, but
what is working out? Working out is really getting your physical fitness in how you enjoy to do it.
Right.
I love playing basketball. And so I was going out and I was playing basketball a couple times a week. And my game is like running and in a lot of physical fitness. And I was like, I have a lot of audacity to come out here and not work out.
Right.
Not be in good shape and then try to do this and then go home and feel like I'm dying for the next 2 days, and so kind of my commitment to work out was like, I got to get in better shape to play basketball. Hence the joke, I work out 5 days a week to play basketball, but I've gotten to be a better athlete than I ever was in my whole entire life, just from that kind of commitment.
Yeah, it is funny. My son, he's driven 2.0. He makes me look lazy. He's 16 and he does wrestling, he does baseball. He owns a mobile detailing business. He's all around. He just works all the time. He hates school, but he gets all A's. We're getting his sophomore year. He's getting his varsity letter. And they're like, yeah, so we also have another letter for like, he's got his academic letter 2 years in a row. He's like, Dad, I just do this shit 'cause I don't want it. I just do it. And I'm like, well, you should probably, government doesn't really mean shit anymore because nobody pays attention. Our government doesn't do what they are supposed to. I said, so you do math and English so you can write an invoice and make sure you add it all right. I'm probably a little bit more direct than most people on giving advice to that, but
well, it's like school that fits people, because for one, we're all different and everybody's going into different life paths, and and it's cool that you had a chance to do like automotive while in high school. The automotive in Brighton, by the way, the program is phenomenal. Like my son's in auto tech too, and just again, real life experience that he gets from that is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But finding things again, like, what are you interested in? For me, and I have a very similar story. I hated school. Like my whole family was like, it was like a thing, a mantra, like a mindset of like, we're horrible at math, right? Like we suck at math. Like it's like my mom would always say it, and then I would say it and just reverb it. And then I'd go to school and I hated math. So like I was obviously very bad at it. And so, but I had an obsession with sports to the point where my teachers would yell at me because I'd have my baseball cards out. I'd have my Trapper Keeper back in the day, and I'd be looking through my baseball cards, and my teachers would be telling me that I'm wasting my time. However, while I'm watching a baseball game, as a baseball player gets a hit, I can do the math in my head and tell you where his average is now. Like I'm like calculating his averages. I can tell you where all these percentages are going to fall. And nobody ever told me at that point, like, you're actually doing math.
Yeah, right.
You know that you're actually pretty good at this. Like you just watched that game and you were able to adjust the numbers in your head. Like, and I didn't really even realize it until I got into business and I got into sales leadership and I got obsessed with the numbers, and I'm like percentages and, like forecasting and like, all this stuff. Like I got obsessed with it, and it all tied into the same math I was doing when I was doing predicting of sports statistics.
Right. There's one other topic I like to touch on. It's like, okay, if you're successful, you communicate. right? Would you agree with that? Like
Yeah.
when you
Oh,
text me,
5,000%.
when you reach out to me, how long does it take me to get back to you?
You're boom, right? Like surprisingly quick. I messaged you yesterday and you're like in. Like,
Yeah, because I this is how my mind thinks. Like, okay, my mind is like, I always tell my wife, she's like, I don't understand you. My mind's like a bowl of popcorn. It's always going, right? It's always
I got a really
popping.
good visual with the popping.
Yeah, it's just going off. And so my thought is like, if somebody gets a hold of me, I get right back a hold of them if I'm not busy. Like obviously if I hear my phone ding, I pull it out, I can answer, right? How many times have you been in sales where you're trying to have a conversation with somebody and they're like, oh, I got to take this call and go. It's no difference if you've been in sales. What do they tell you when you call a business? They don't give a shit if the place is on fire. You answer the phone. Hello, Garrett Auto and Truck Service. Could you please hold?
Yeah.
Click. Then hell breaks loose, right?
Yeah.
You don't answer. Oh, Garrett Auto and Truck Service. Oh,
We're on fire.
Hold on. Like, 'cause then you look like shit.
Yeah.
You look like you don't have a control. And I kind of put that into mind. Like if I'm talking to somebody or they don't answer, oh, I was just too busy. No, you're too busy for me. Okay. I have a guy that's called and asked me for some stuff, and I sent it to him right away. No response. So finally I asked him, what the fuck is the problem here?
Yeah.
You can't answer? Like, seriously, how can you not answer somebody?
I had this sales guy, and this was really masterful. I had this sales guy, he was in freight shipping, and I taught him to find niche markets. And so he found this niche market in solar because it was really big back in 2019, really taking off. And so he had this one solar company that was that he had just got a commitment from, but they had a problem as he was going through their discovery. They needed a partner that could do XYZ for them. And this other prospect that Garrison had was exactly that. Like they could do what this company needed. And so he got this great idea. I'm going to call the guy that has been putting me off. Like this guy started off as a hot lead, said, I'm interested, and now has been ghosting him over and over and over again. So Garrison calls this guy answers, and he's like, hey, oh my God, I'm so glad I got you on the phone. And he was like, hey, I have a new client that needs XYZ, and you're the first person I thought of. I think that you guys could really probably partner up and have a great opportunity. And the guy was like, oh my God, that is amazing. Yeah, I'd definitely be interested. And Garrison's like, but he was like, I got to tell you, your communication's been horrible. He was like, we've had a couple meetings on the schedule and you've just ghosted me. He was like, you haven't answered my calls. And so I really need to know, if I put you in connection with one of my treasured clients, are you going to answer the phone and take care of them? Are you a person that follows up with your word? Because you haven't shown me that so far. And before he got to the phone, he wrote that guy's business and passed the referral because to your point, you're just not that person's not important enough to that person. Kind of going back to school, they don't give a shit, right? Until there's something to give a shit about. All of a sudden now Garrison's calling him and he has an opportunity for him to have business. And all of a sudden now this guy's like, looks at him like you're so valuable, but he didn't give a shit about him yesterday. He didn't give a shit about him before he answered that phone call.
Yeah. It's very interesting because we were buying that cabin, and it was a simple deal. It was no financing. We're going to pay you. So I got a hold of my lawyer. I said, do all the paperwork on it and stuff like that. I said, we should be able to wrap this thing up in like a week and a half, 2 weeks at the very most. So the second week comes around, halfway through the second week, she's like, we think we can close next Friday. I go, you call them up and tell them if we don't close Monday, I'm going to fire their ass and we're going to get somebody else. My wife's like, I'm like, they're just screwing around. So, yep, we're all set for Monday. So we go in there, and I'm like, okay, so how busy are you guys? Oh, we're really not that busy. Like, don't you want to close it so you can have your focus on the next deal?
Yeah.
That's what they used to say they said in management success. When you're on your last car, that car lasts forever. Job never gets done because the mechanic's like, yeah, I'm not going to finish this job. I won't have anything to do. And I always tell my people, prepare to deliver. Get rid of the stuff that you have in the shop, finish the jobs, and prepare to deliver. If we get everything done now, next week we can have everybody bring it in. We don't have to prepare to deliver. Always get ready, fix your equipment, do that stuff. I think that's where it's lacking in a lot of businesses because you have so many layers of management in these corporations. The manager of these branches have no more authority than a German shepherd.
So true.
Isn't it crazy? You can't get nothing done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's why I am very passionate about small businesses. From a consultant trainer standpoint, I get very frustrated with those levels of management because if I'm working with a salesperson, sales team, even any from a middle manager, they don't really have much control over their situation.
It's nuts. I don't, or they get guys that pretty much don't even know what they're doing. They shouldn't even be in that job. He was just next in line. You've seen that. I'm sure he's a body,
Yeah.
and I think that's,
That's, yeah.
they used
Yep.
to say the thing, a man's to hire fast, fire fast. If you're a master at your craft, you should be able to pull somebody and hire them after you do your due diligence in your hiring process. Within the first 3 hours of that person doing the job you hired him to do, you know that job good enough to know if he's going to make it or not.
Yeah.
The first day, I'll say 3 days. I usually give them 4 days. First day, they're nervous. Second day, they need to figure out who, what. Then at
Yep.
that point, your job, if I took you right out of here and took this table, these microphones somewhere else, you could do exactly what you do.
Oh, absolutely.
I could fix pretty much or do what I do wherever I'm at.
Yep.
So it's not a matter of,
If you have the experience and expertise, it doesn't matter where you're at. You could be in the
Exactly.
middle of the desert and, given the tools and do it.
exactly. And that's where I think we're lacking. People just don't pivot on their heel anymore and just go do different stuff. And now that I said it out loud, I have done a lot of different shit and just kind of just did it, but
And that's the key, though, is you just did it. Because even if you're coming in with no experience, if you just go do it, you might fall on your face and look silly the first day. But you'll get better the second day and the third day and the fourth day. It's the reps. It's the repetition, right? And if you're coachable and if you come in and you're not lying and saying, I've got all this experience, if you're someone that's like, I don't have the experience, but I really want to learn, and then you just decide to hire them and they become coachable, they plug in and they want to learn, that's the difference maker right there.
and the problem is you don't really find people anymore that are so driven. They want to get up early. Like I changed our business hours. We work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, both companies. Why? Because I didn't want to drive in the bullshit on 96.
Yeah.
And my guys were getting home so late. They're like, man, it sucks going home. I'm like, all right, well, let's just close at 4. And you know what? It did not change my numbers at all. Statistically,
Yeah.
we get more work done from 7 to 8 than we used to get from 8 to 9. Because 7 to 8, nobody's at work yet.
Yeah.
So my
Oh,
guys
yeah.
have an hour of actually doing work before the phone starts ringing and stuff like that. Because when Steve owned the place and I worked for him, we would work Monday through Friday, 8 to 6:30, and we worked Saturday all day. And guess what? We weren't doing any more numbers, but we were tired.
Yes. Yes.
So efficiency, and I tell people, they're like, that's weird hours. Why do you have them hours? I said, because if I can't make enough money, my people can't make enough money in 40 hours, me as a business owner, I'm doing something wrong. So there is price increases all the time now in our world. Before we could put oil filters and fuel filters in stock, and it would be in 6 months, I would recheck the price on them. We call them daily now, $3, $4, $5, $6 a filter some days.
Mm.
So, our numbers are rolling all the time. Our labor rate, we change when my graph gets down where I know my margins aren't where my labor rate has to go up. Why does your labor rate have to go up? I don't know what to tell you. I'm not controlling the world. All I know is I have to raise my numbers up so I can have my margins so I can stay in business. My uncle was a dentist. He's retired now, but he would never drive his Corvette to the office.
Yeah.
I drive my Corvette or my motorcycle, but my guys all drive their new Harleys to the shop too. So you pull up there, and I look at it as, you know what? My guys all make good enough money where they could all have new motorcycles and nice trucks.
Yep. Yep.
Okay? Because how many times you pull in a parking lot when you see all the people's cars there in a business, you're like, oh, look, the Mercedes parked up front, and there's a bunch of blown up crack boxes, shit
Right.
boxes.
Right.
This guy doesn't pay his employees anything.
Yep.
Okay? If I have any type of fault, I pay my employees very, very well because I want them to be happy. And I want them to not worry about where the next paycheck, if they can pay their Edison bill or whatever. So everybody that works for me makes very good money, more than the market, anybody else in the market usually, because I want to share it. I want the best of the best. So if I'm making a shit
That's
ton of money, I
absolutely
want them to make a shit ton of money. That's just the bottom line.
Because then you keep and retain the best too.
Yeah. So if a guy comes to my guy and goes, I'll pay you $24 an hour, he's like, I make 45. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And I'm not that, no, my original boss, he was completely the opposite from years ago. He's like, yeah, I don't give a shit. I just want mine. And good for him. That's the way he rolled. And I kind of think I learned a little bit that you can make enough money to give yourself a good life, a good livelihood, but also share it
Yes.
and change other people's lives too. And that's kind of what I do. And anybody that works for me, you can ask them, they make really good money. Um, that's kind of the way I feel about it.
The couple things and like talking about like productivity and working less hours, working harder not smarter, or working smarter not harder, right?
Uh-huh.
But like when you give your people that extra time, you're letting them get out at 4 o'clock. Like during the summer months, they've still got several hours of daylight. They can
Yeah.
go out and have a barbecue. They can go out and they have like work life balance. They're probably happier to be there. They're making money. They can ride their Harley up. That's just an enjoyment of life that's different than the average worker.
I did a analysis of 2 years. I did 2 years. Say I did 1 year on, 1 year off. So the 1 year I worked the Friday before Labor Day and the Friday before Memorial Day, and I looked at our sales. Okay. Then the next year, I took both them off. Our numbers for the year did not change because my guys took 4 days off. They came back and they just worked harder
Absolutely.
because they were so. Anytime I can close a shop, I do. Anytime I'm like, yep, we're not going to be here Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're not there weekends, but Friday and Monday we're done. Oh, 4th of July is Wednesday. Shit, we'll close Monday, Tuesday too. Okay. And my guys are all financially stable enough because I never would hear, I really can't
Oh
afford.
man, I need those hours. Yeah.
And I used to be that guy.
Yeah.
I used to think to myself, oh, shit, he's closing.
Yeah.
But he never would close. So it was never a problem. I think I might have been the driving force. He kind of knew that he couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it. You know what I mean? But my guys all make good enough money. We're like, man, that's awesome. Because that's the one thing you cannot buy. You only get so much time here on this earth. As rich as you are, you can't buy more time yet.
I love, and again, this is coming in your language, what you're saying is that from your experience, you experience these things and you've went out and you've created a company where you've given people what you didn't have.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, what happened with the dealerships? They can't make their people work till 8 or 9 o'clock at night anymore. The people are going, no.
Yep.
We are not making freaking Bob Sachs another $1 billion this year working till 9 o'clock at night while he's doing this. And, my thing is like, I talk to my guys or whatever. But now if I said, hey, I need everybody to stay till 9 o'clock tonight with me, they would all stay. Or I need this, I need that. But I never ask because if I'm doing my job, they should be financially stable. They should have all the training they want. They should have time off, paid vacations and stuff like that. And that's the way I feel about it. I'm probably the weirdest business owner in my line of work and my hours and everything, the way my employees are. I mean, I think that without them, I know where I'd be. Without me, I always I was just telling Jim this morning, I said, people that usually work within these corporations, their life gets better if they want it to. Now, we've had some shitbags that you've seen
Yep.
this in the sales world where you help these guys and they come right out and they start doing good. And they're all of a sudden they're doing really good and they start to do this. And all of a sudden they get freaked out and they back all the way back where they were.
Yep.
And they quit. And there has to be a villain in a story. That villain is you.
We are the stories we're told and the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's easy to justify and call somebody else a villain, Yeah,
I had a guy that worked for me for 30 years. I was the best man at his wedding and everything. And he walked out on me 4 months ago. Walked into me and said, I'm all done. I said, all done with what? He said, I quit. I said, you're giving me 2 weeks? No, I'm all done. I'm leaving today. Now, this guy he started that shop 7 months after me. Okay,
Wow.
So when you stop and think about it, like I'm the guy that started making the cheeseburger at McDonald's and ended up owning a franchise. I started a shop and ended up owning a shop.
Yep.
And changing the shop around. That Garrett Auto and Truck was incorporated or put into business as Grand Halstead in 1958.
Wow.
Okay, I came in 1995.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
To have a piece of history, really.
Yeah, and I know pretty much all the history because Steve's dad was there and Steve was there, so I know I got one guy, Jason Spencer, he is the VP and an owner of the company too, because last year I decided, okay, I'm going to give these guys each a piece of the business. So they each are vice presidents. Jim
That's so
Gray
cool.
and Jason are both vice presidents. They both are business owners, just like me now.
That's
They're
awesome.
minority owners. And I said, here you go. Jason's been with me 17 years. I hated him. He's a mouthy. I told this story. I said, you're the mouthiest little son of a bitch. He's like, yeah. My dad said, I'll throw you off this roof because his dad owns a construction company. He's like, I was going to throw him off the roof. He was so mouthy. But me and him, he's worked with me for 17 years. And
Isn't that funny how you might not like somebody at the beginning and then you
Yeah.
form a relationship
my
like
wife,
that?
me and my wife hated each other. If we were in the same group, I'd be like, you're the mouthiest lady. I cannot stand you. Then all of a sudden we didn't have nothing to do. We were both between relationships. We go to a Christmas party. Next thing I know, we're in love.
The moral of the story is you ultimately really like multi people.
Yeah, exactly. So,
You hate him at first, but then you realize you're really attracted to him.
yeah. So, but these guys that, I want Jason, like when I want to retire here, I'm 53, I want to be done by the time I'm 60 is what my plan is. Sell him the shop, sell Motor City. Jim's, doesn't want to end up buying it, run it without me or by himself or whatever. He's older than me.
Yeah.
So we're going to sell it. He's going to get a piece of it. We're going to go on. Jason's going to buy a Garrett Auto and Truck and I'll be done with it. People are like, you going to be sad? I'm like, hell no. Because owning your own business is stressful. Either you're here or you're here.
Yeah.
And if you're on your way down, you're like, I'm the worst business owner in the world. As you're going up, I got this shit licked. Okay? There's holes in your ceiling above your bed from staring there going, holy shit. So
For everybody listening, he is not lying, and you're probably resonating and shaking your head, right? If you've been there, it's so true. You're up on the mountaintop and then you're back down, but I wouldn't trade the ride for anything.
like my wife said, I said, well, if I sold the businesses, could I come to work? She goes, corporate America wouldn't have you. I said, oh, yeah, they would. And the thing is, I'd be firing a lot of people and I'd be running the thing and it'd start making money wherever I went. I said, because I just have that personality. I'm like, you know what anti-seize is when you put on a bolt?
Yeah.
Anti-seize, you can put a little spot and next thing you know, it's in your hair. It's everywhere. That's me. Like, I just not going to be normal. I've never been normal. I remember my uncle and I'm sitting there going to get me a job at Chrysler when I was like 16 years old. If we could just get him making $45,000 to $50,000 a year, he could make it because he's not going to make it anywhere else. And I remember sitting there thinking, what are these fucking people sitting there saying this, And it's kind of interesting, the outlook, how things change.
Yeah.
And, it comes on, for me, it came from smart decisions and stick-to-itiveness. I think I was too dumb to give up. And another thing that helped me a lot was Dave Ramsey years ago. We were in debt up their ass personally.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember looking at our credit card, go, well, we don't have enough money for Christmas. And I went and got on the Dave Ramsey program. And within a year, me and my wife pretty much, by buying and selling stuff and doing everything, we were pretty much debt-free except for our house.
Wow.
So that program does work if you do it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
That was my kids went through it too. I had all my kids go through it. They've all done very well too.
That's killer. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I wanted to wrap this up. I love that how you're just kind of being like an ass to that guy and like pointing out the Corvette. And you never know how you're going to impact and change somebody's life, but a lot of times just being direct in telling somebody something. I know you're not a sports fan, but I had listened to this a long time ago. Kobe Bryant was talking about how it sucks to be a leader sometimes because people think you're an asshole. And he was like, but I'm a guy. He was like, I want what's best for you. And he was like, if I'm sitting with you at lunch and you've got a piece of spinach in between your teeth, I'm going to tell you, you look like an idiot. You got some spinach between your teeth. Go take it out. He was like, so many people are afraid to offend or make people uncomfortable that they won't tell them. And so they'll sit there with them and stare at them for a whole entire hour lunch and then let them go on with their day and not tell them. And then at one point they're going to notice and be like, damn, Kobe didn't tell me I had spinach between my teeth, So I was in this like little networking group, little like mastermind when 5 years ago or so. And there was this guy in the group and I didn't know him very well, but he was just kind of broken. He had his business, website graphic design business for a really long time. And he was talking about he used to be successful. He's telling me all these great stories about how he used to take care of these customers. And these customers used to love him. And now he's just down at, riding the cycle and he's down here at the bottom. And he's like, So I had asked him the question of why don't you call the people that used to love you? You know, like why are you not picking up the phone? Who are you calling? And he was just like, oh, you know, like it hurts my stomach to think about calling people, blah, blah, blah. And other people in the group were trying to be like nice to him and like give him the soft, comfy pillow. And they're like, well, maybe you should get on social media and put some posts out there. And maybe you should like send some emails out and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, maybe you should stop being a pussy. Maybe you should stop being a pussy. You should pick up the phone and make some calls. Right. And call those people. And the guy looked at me and I felt bad instantly because the guy looked at me and I could tell I broke him. Like he just looked sad. It looked like he was about to cry. And I went home and I was like, man, I should probably call him and apologize. I just was really passionate because all these people were like giving him the, you know, just soft way and not telling him the truth. And I just could see the truth right there. Right. So I go home and I tell my wife almost made me sleep on the couch. She's like, I can't believe you said that. And then she didn't even know the guy. The guy's the nicest guy in the world, like ended up becoming a client. So fast forward next week, we go to our mastermind meeting and I'm like, man, I should apologize to this guy, but I didn't. I sat down at the table and he had to give a recap of what he did for that past week. And he was like, this has been the best week I've had in a really, really long time. He was like, I left this meeting and he was like, I was so pissed. He was like, I was ranting all the way back home to Ann Arbor. Who does this guy think he is? Who the fuck does this guy think he is to speak to me like that? He was like, and I was ranting all the way home. And he's like, I got to my wife. He was like, I started telling her the story. And I said, can you believe that he said that to me? And he was like, I didn't even have the words finished. And her eyes immediately looked down to the ground. She couldn't even look me in the eyes. And I knew immediately that you told me the truth. And you were the first person to tell me the truth. That even my wife knew it, but she wouldn't tell me. And so I picked up the phone. I started making calls, and this is the best week I've had in a really long time. Yeah. It's like people need to hear the truth as opposed to being, oh man, sorry.
You're right. And what ends up happening, we can't hear the truth anymore because social media, we can get all kinds of opinions on social media, right?
Yeah.
But the ones that are really, if you call them a pussy on social media, Mark Zuckerberg, he would have been zucked.
Zucked. Oh man, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, what does Dave Ramsey say? He's like, I never take advice from my broke brother-in-law, financial advice from my broke brother-in-law. And it's funny, me and my wife had an argument the other day about having something on my face. Because she's always like, you have a booger on your face. And after a while, I'm like, why don't you just let fucking sit there and leave me alone? Like, you know what I'm saying? So I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, she's comfortably enough to say that, but it irritates you. But after you're like, well, I don't really want to walk around with a booger on my face. So why did she have to tell me? You know, so yeah, good stuff. I really enjoyed myself today. I know I kind of get talking. I'm all over the place, I think. Just my mind moves so fast. I'm just got so much shit to say.
So much shit to say, but it's good. And I love about these episodes. I don't have any planned questions ever. Anybody that's listened to me over and knows that. But I think, again, it all correlates. It all comes back. Like the school thing. That was one of your first statements. And that came back so many times because it just...
Yeah, and I used to actually, I have one friend that called me. I was like, you're not dumb. You just acted like you're dumb so you didn't have to do the work. Got me. And he's probably one of the only people that I take advice from, because he'll tell me straight out, and I'll be like, "What an asshole." Then I'll think about it, go, "Oh, he's kind of right."
He's kind of right.
and I do the same thing to him. You know, now that Steve's not around, you know, I don't get that advice. You know, the father, like he was always older than me, so he kind of knew. We were in the same business for a long time, so he could relate. And you know, when you can relate to somebody, it's a little bit easier to talk. Go home and try to talk to your wife about what we talked about today. She was like, what? Or I can't talk to my wife about my world. They don't get it. And she can't talk to me about her world.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing, I think small business is the backbone of America. And I think these corporations are ruining it. I think they want to try to push everybody to talking on text. And how many kids do you run into that can't even have a conversation with you?
For sure. And that's what, to end it for sure, is communication is the backbone, right? And we talked about that as like those that can communicate will win. Those that make communication easy will win.
I always tell my son, and then I will leave it at this. I always tell my son, how hard is it for you to be the best 16-year-old detailer in Livingston County or in Michigan? Not hard at all, because you're already out working everybody. They're going to Tropical Smoothie Cafe to have freaking banana smoothies and shit and watch TikTok while you're out working.
And to put it in perspective, where is he going to be by the time he's 20?
Yeah.
Because he's put in the reps.
Yeah. Amen.
Brother, thank you so much for reaching out.